mention, my kids also go to a Microschool, so I do have some insight in what they have been doing. At least Dax does, and then my middle son's going to be attending, and it's a farm-ish Microschool in Waddell, Arizona. What I'm going to talk about today, a lot of these things you probably are familiar with, and so if you are familiar with everything, I also wanted to give you the opportunity to work together and to brainstorm, and then some of the things you may not have heard of, or I'm inviting you to have an open mind about. When Andrew, when he introduced himself, what he described is pretty much my whole talk. And what I'm going to talk about is what he's doing in his school and preparing students for the actual future, not the future that traditional schools are still pretending that we have. And I would love to make this as interactive as possible too, so you can always stop, raise hands, or just shout out. And so I have some questions throughout. We're going to do a little exercise, so if you do have your computer, you can do it on your computer or your phone. We have an interactive segment that we will, all of our answers will come up on the screen. And then at the end, we're going to go over into Cassie's classroom and work together in teams. The kids kind of took over, but I mean, you can leave them if you want, or you can kick them out. It's totally up to you.
We all like kids.
Yes, we love kids, right? That's why we're here. Okay, so I would love to see show of hands. How many of you chose microschooling because traditional school was not working for a child you loved? Okay, that's totally me. And keep your hand up if you worry that kids in general, especially in our culture, are not being prepared for the future world. So here's the truth. What you guys are doing in the educational environments that you are creating, you're preparing them for the actual world versus, again, what traditional systems are pretending that still exist and they no longer exist. Okay, so I would love to hear from you. What happens when a child's world changes faster than their education? What are we seeing?
Anxiety.
That song Anxiety immediately came to my head. Like all the Instagram reels I see.
Lack of motivation.
Lack of motivation. What else?
What about confusion, like a disconnect? I get a lot of confused students.
Yes. Not having a sense of purpose or a strong sense of identity or coming into a strong sense of identity.
Yeah.
What else?
Well, I also feel like they're not prepared for change. Okay, we're doing this now. They're like, no, this is what it was supposed to be. We can't transition to something else. So they're lacking that skill also.
And then that causes anxiety, rigidity.
Mm-hmm.
What, Cherokee?
Apathy. Why does this matter?
Yes.
Why am I learning this?
Machines can do everything for me now. Why? We're going to do some role play around that as well. Tech addiction, or especially, we're seeing, boys just on their games, just dopamine nonstop. Girls on social media, Anxious Generation. We have that book in the back. If you haven't read it or listened to it, I highly, highly recommend that book. Okay,
There's also a Netflix that you can rent. That's the video, like the movie presentation.
Oh, wow. That's super cool. So we have, the Microschool advantage is we have intimate settings, that creates deep personal development. And what, Cassie is saying, don't know what to do when we to transition. Or I recently heard that there's really no need for discipline if there's strong connection. That's pretty powerful. And that is what your position is, having microschools that you're able to do for these kids. Flexible structures, you are able to teach them skills, like Andrew, that actually prepare them for the future. I was just listening to Mackenzie Price on Future Education, and she was talking about science labs. You look at some of these science labs, we made something fizz, yay! And which is cool, and that's awesome. I let my son just play with baking soda and vinegar in the sink, and because it's really fun. But what can we do to actually teach real life skills that they're going to need. Strong relationships develop emotional intelligence. We are seeing a decline in emotional intelligence, and I also think that's because I work with parents. Parents don't have the emotional intelligence that they need, and they weren't prepared. We weren't prepared for this world that we are inheriting. And then connection to purpose and having that strong internal compass. So what I'm going to talk about too is how we really need to transition from a didactic thinking, where I have all these, kind of what we're doing right now, right? And that's why we're going to do some interactive sessions, to dialogical thinking. Does anyone know what dialogical thinking is? Have you heard of that term? Andrew, you're smiling.
Reminds me of like Socratic discussion, but I've not heard that actual term before.
Yeah, so I was listening to Future of Education as I was preparing for this, and they were talking about this concept that it's kind of like I throw a ball to you, and you throw it back, and then I throw it to you, and then you throw it back, and it's just this back and forth. And it's basically this concept that learning is social. Think about when a baby is learning to talk. Are we sitting there? I mean, some parents sit there with flashcards, but are we sitting there and teaching them, these words? No, it's through social interaction. That never stops in the human experience. And yet, because, we're going to get into the Industrial Revolution and what, education and how we got to where we are. But for some reason, we think we have to teach all these things in a didactic way. Really, the way humans learn and how we need to learn is in this dialogical way. The half-life of skills is shrinking rapidly. The half-life of knowledge is shrinking rapidly because things are changing at such a rapid rate. We're at a place now, I've been listening to so many things to prepare for this, that they can't even predict what we're going to do because of, there's also, so they can't predict what technology is going to do. What is the term? Did I write it down? Emerging properties. So that is, these machines are basically thinking on their own, or they're doing things that we're not telling them to do. And that's why we're going to see even more advances at such a rapid rate that we're not prepared. We saw this coming, but we're not prepared. And so educating kids in the environments that you're able to actually start preparing kids for the future of rapid change. This is also, I was listening to an evolutionary biologist, and he said this is unprecedented times because of what's called hyper-novelty. This is the first time that in history that the world that we grew up in is a completely different world now. And if you look back, it's never happened at this rapid of a rate. So just think about, and we're going to talk about this, the world these kids are going to have and live in when they're our age. So then, this is what we are going to explore today. So that was just kind of my intro, getting you all ready. Like, it's not all about doom and gloom. It's about, we can, if you listen to some of these people, it is very doom and gloom. But then we can choose to, just, it's here, it's coming, like machines are taking over, or we can choose to do something about it, and that's what I want to talk about today. So we're going to talk about why traditional schools miss the mark. You all left the traditional system for a reason. The anxiety epidemic, which is what Orion just mentioned. Future skills brainstorming session, and that's where we'll do an interactive session. And then I created a framework that will help you easily think of how we can help kids thrive in the future, and it's using the letters thrive. And then we're going to have a little role play with some hot topics, and because some of these kids do in these generation, they're thinking deeply about these issues, and there's issues that we didn't have to think about growing up. And then we're going to talk about building resilience for the unpredictable future, and we're going to end with our little activity over there. Okay, so why traditional schools miss the mark? Love to hear from you guys first. Why do they miss the mark? Yes? one size fits all. I love in my son's Microschool, there's a class, I think, 1st through 4th, 5th-ish, it just depends. Every single kid has a different spelling list. Every single kid has a different concept of math that they're learning because it is tailored to where they are in their learning. And I can tell you, he went from Montessori, where there were some challenges at the Montessori school he was in, but he got to play a lot, which was amazing, and I think that is developmentally appropriate. But he was not reading going into 2nd grade, and because he was able to go at his own pace, oh my gosh, his reading skills just took off. So why else do traditional schools miss the mark?
There's too many students. You can't do one-on-one, and it stresses the teachers out. I have lots and lots of public education teachers, and they just want to jump off.
Yes, well, think about it from a nervous system standpoint. So a lot of you have heard me talk a lot about the nervous system. I have one nervous system trying to co-regulate with 30 extremely underdeveloped nervous systems that are 100% dependent on a developed nervous system to develop in a healthy way. Of course, and then that adult, if they're not aware of these things and they're not taking care and nourishing their nervous system, it's very hard environment. And the schools like where we are, 35, 40 kids, no aides, no help, it's crazy.
There's not only a mental health issue with our students, it's with the teachers too.
Oh, 100%. What else?
I think school is designed for a different time period. And now that we have tech and cryptocurrency and like kids making millions, right? Like life self-actualization and life purpose stuff is more possible, whereas before, like, I know my ancestors were paving the way, like doing the hard work so that we could do this, I don't know, more purposeful work. So I don't think school was designed for this next evolution of society. And I think it's just old and outdated.
18th century model.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's my next slide, so thank you for that segue. That's perfect. Because schools are designed for compliance, uniformity, and test performance. And that test performance also creates such a fixed mindset. I take a test, I fail it, I'm stupid. You know, whereas let's assess you, let's see where you are, let's look how much growth you had. Even if it's just this tiny bit of growth. Oh wow, I'm really smart. You know, and maybe even saying those things are kind of a fixed mindset too, but the things that we tell ourselves and the inner voice that starts to, you know, what kids are telling themselves become their inner voice that becomes who they become in the world. And we're not educating kids forever. We're not raising kids forever. We're raising and educating kids that are going to be adults. And so what the real world needs that we need is creativity, collaboration, emotional intelligence, adaptability, cognitive flexibility. I'm going to be saying these things over and over again because the best way the brain learns is through repetition. I would love for you to shout out a skill that you use in your daily life, that you never learned in school. Meal planning.
Yeah.
Grocery shopping. That is one thing my son learned at Montessori school.
Project management.
Project management.
Taxes.
Financial, I mean, I know some high schools now are requiring financial literacy, but I didn't have that growing up.
Self-regulation.
Yeah.
What did you say?
Reading the room.
Empathy.
That's not.
Understanding how my brain and body and nervous system are wired. I did discover these things into my 30s. I'm like, this would have been so helpful to know, especially during my 20s.
Yep.
And my kids, I mean, that's such a gift that, I mean, he could walk in here and tell you about his amygdala, his frontal lobe, his, you know, and also practice it, not just have the knowledge about it. I have a friend who has a child that she adopted. He, you know, had a lot of trauma growing up, or I'm guessing, I think he was addicted to drugs when he was born. And so he really struggles with emotional regulation. And she sent me a Voxer message last night. I am taking your tools. He actually was able to push the buttons on the paper. There's like, I have a calming tool that has different color and different buttons and that you push. And he did it in the moment during dysregulation. I was like, you have no idea how huge this is. You're building his brain. He's becoming aware of, you know, his brain and parents, because it's really hard when a child is dysregulated, but think about how that's going to help him for his whole life and how that's going to serve him. Okay, so the industrial education model, you know, it was what Andrew was saying. It was created to create, or it was designed to create factory workers. And, you know, John D. Rockefeller is famously quoted, which I did my research. This is another thing too, you have to fact check everything, you know. Whereas my mother-in-law, when she reads something on Facebook, she thinks that is truth. Because growing up, the information she was given was true. But the famous quote, which they said there's probably some things that did lead him to, you know, say this, but is, I don't want a nation of thinkers, I want a nation of workers. Now we have all these machines and AI and things that are doing the work, and we need people who can think. So we have to have this shift. And we're moving into our fourth industrial revolution, and it's machine learning. And then the standardized thinking and behavior that develops really strong belief systems. I get, you know, with working with families, especially it seems like with a lot of the dads, this is so hard for them to shift their paradigm or shift their thinking of how a kid should behave or respect them, or, you know, or think that they're gonna be too soft and they're gonna raise a bunch of, I almost said weenies and then I just said it, but it just came out, sorry. But, you know, and so the older we get, we have these belief systems that are so ingrained. So more than ever, we really need to help kids learn how to think and be able to shift and be able to adapt. And we train kids to follow, we were trained, I was trained, I don't know if everyone in this room was, follow bells and whistles. I mean, perfectionism was my thing. Group projects, I mean, put me in a group project and you will not fail, you know. And then as an adult, I realized, oh, we have some work to do. But that was also cultivated in the environment that I was raised in. Okay, so we kind of already talked about what this system produced. And here's what today's reality is, you know. So first of all, a lot of the jobs that exist right now, they're gonna be gone. You know, customer service jobs. I mean, look at the healthcare. I was talking to a South African man, and he was telling me about in New Zealand. I can't remember which. It was either New Zealand or Australia. One of them banned AI in legal services, and the other one allows it. There's no lawyers left in the one that allows it, because they don't need the people to write contracts and do all these things anymore, because the machines are able to do it. And we have these language learning models like ChatGPT and Claude, and, you know, wherever they're able to think and process so fast, and it's getting faster and faster. Even probably in the moment that I'm talking, they're getting faster in computing all this information. And so there's still problems in the world, and they need creative solutions. And then teams and people need to be able to collaborate. You know, whenever people will say, well, my kids need to have social skills, so they have to go to school. I'll ask them, well, how much do they get to talk to their neighbor while they're in school? Because a lot of times they're not allowed to, because again, schools were not created for that. Now some schools are starting to, you know, infuse some of those things and promotes collaboration. And, you know, success, as I mentioned, really requires emotional intelligence. And more than anything, I was just thinking about this morning how much Denise has adapted to where you are sitting right here. There's so many different shifts and change. Oh, we need a table, we need to do this. Just this constant shifting and changing. And so adaptability is one of the best skills that we can cultivate in our students. So what happens when preparation, so we have these, you know, kids in environments that are preparing for them for a future that doesn't exist, and what happens when it doesn't match reality? And Lorianne said it. Anxiety goes up. And some levels of anxiety is good. Some levels of being in our sympathetic state of, mobilization is good. But when our brains are flooded with cortisol and stress hormones and, you can't process what's happening, that's when we get in trouble. I volunteer for my church, and I have a group of about 25, 30 sophomore girls in my group. Every single one of them talks about how they suffer from crazy amounts of anxiety, isolation. I'm like, you're sitting with a group of people. Why do you feel so isolated and alone? And because preparation is not matching reality. And I think some of this is so interesting. Students excel at test taking, but they can't solve problems. How to Raise an Adult by Julie Haynes. Such a great book. And she said she was just noticing these patterns. I forget, anyone familiar with Julie Haynes? Do you know what school, Stanford or Yale or? I don't remember. She said that kids were getting dropped off, freshmen, with all their luggage on the sidewalk, just standing there waiting. Or Lenore Skenazy, whenever we interviewed her on the Kindle podcast, said she would walk into classrooms and the kid would drop their pencil and then just wait for it just to magically appear on the desk. So it's like, but that student that's waiting for that to happen could probably get an A on a test, right? But we really need to get kids who are motivated. And what you had said is like there's such a lack of motivation. And high achievers, they're burning out. That's another epidemic. And kids are feeling unprepared for a world. And this might not even be conscious. It may be subconscious too. And then academic success without life skills leads to anxiety and overwhelm. So I'm not going to read all this, but if you want to look at all the stats, I'm sure just look around too, you're able to see the epidemic. Okay, so what do you see in kids that tells you they're not okay?
Lack of resiliency.
We're going to get into it.
Apathy.
I do a lot of self-harm.
So, and in the school environment too, what does that look like?
Using things to cut themselves, headbanging, hitting, you name it. Picking.
Self-medication.
Yes. It's so easy to get weed. It's like crazy easy.
Yeah, a lot of mind-numbing activities in the teens.
Yeah.
Video gaming, withdrawing to their rooms.
Yep.
Doom scrolling. Non-existent attention span, which also goes with
The fragmented attention that Jonathan Haidt talks about all the time. Low self-esteem.
Yeah, 0.
And so the response we've had, and this is what we do, is more counselors, more testing, more SEL programs, and it's still not solving the problem. And that's because this is what actually works. I'm going to be repeating these over and over again. It's connection, understanding, more community. So with connection, we know the smaller learning environments where adults know each children, even if maybe you don't always want to be around that child, but you deeply know them and you can attune to their needs. And relationship-based approaches that address root causes, what we're talking about, we're able to see what these root causes are underneath of the gaming and the self-medication, and it's like, why is that happening? I'm working with a family. They came to me it was my very first family in my program. She came to me just in tears the whole time because their son at the time was doing a lot of high-risk behaviors. He had attempted suicide the year before. He was 16 when she called me. He's now 17. He was doing, had attempted suicide. He had wrecked 3 cars in 3 months since he got his license. He was smoking weed. They felt as if they were losing their son. And within 4 weeks, they got their son back. And just last week, he did smoke weed again. But this time, instead of, we're taking the car away, we're taking this way, she stopped and paused and was able to recognize we made him go to all these family functions. There's a lot of people in his face, and he has social anxiety. And he probably just got to a place where he needed a release. And so then they had a beautiful conversation, and he didn't hide anything. He told them every single detail because they had built this foundation of trust. And then they were able to sit down with him and say, okay, instead of, do you want to keep smoking weed? He's like, no, it makes me dumb. I hate it. Okay, so then what can we do instead? Next time you feel that way, what are some things that you can do? What are some things that we can do? That's how we actually prepare our kids. And then with more understanding, we don't need more testing, we need more understanding. So trauma-informed practices that recognize that behavior is communication, as I just mentioned. I talked about trauma-informed education last year. Understanding brain development and nervous system responses, recognizing that academic pressure often worsens anxiety, and then meeting kids where they are, and then more community. So training, like doing things like this, where we're coming together in the flesh. I had met Andrew, 4 or 5 years ago, all through Zoom and phone and email, and then I got to see him in the flesh. Like, it's so important to be in community, in person. Peer support systems, mixed age, that is huge. Where else in your life are you segregated because I'm 42? Like, where? What? I don't even know how old any of you are. You're probably like span with like a pretty big age range is my guess. And because we're able to learn from each other. So mixed age and community is really, really important. And my son just did basketball camp, and he's like, Mom, I feel really bad, but I pretended like I was 9 because I wanted to be with the 9-year-olds because he's so used to not having to be with kids just his age. And so we talked about something. I was like, well, why don't we go tell the coach if you feel like you need to? And he's like, no, I'm good. And I was like, okay, we're good. That works. Family partnership and parent education. This is really huge too. And I know some families are used to just sending their kids out the door and you don't hear much from them unless they have a problem. But getting them involved. I am working with my son's Microschool and doing parent nights where the teachers go and watch the kids and the parents come together. We're gonna do fun workshops and activities, and then I'm gonna sneak in some parenting skills. And so just having events. We do fall festivals and anything where we can get the parents connected, I think is really powerful in creating community as well. And what community does is it helps kids create the connections and gives them purpose beyond themselves. Okay, so here's some practical ways to reduce anxiety. I like to have very practical tools, and so daily check-ins. Maybe it's a day. Rituals are really important. Like you have some kind of cool, dance or something that you do whenever the kids come in. Building their emotional vocabulary. I see that you're really frustrated. I see that, and not just sad, mad, angry. They know those words. Try to expand their emotional vocabulary. Nervous system regulation, teaching them about their nervous systems. Use the polyvagal theory or use, with the ladder. There's lots of resources out there. We had Deborah M. Wilson, who wrote a book called The Polyvagal Path to Joyful Learning. I think that's it. You can look up Deborah M. Wilson. She has a program called School Moves, and she does lots of workshops. She lives in Tucson, and she helps educators incorporate all of these nervous system exercises and things to teach kids.
What was her name again?
Deborah M. Wilson, because there's a Deborah Wilson that's like a famous person, so she just threw EM in the middle. And it's School Moves, it's SCOOL Moves, I think .com. It should pop up.
Do you know what episode that was? I don't remember. Do you want me to look it up?
I don't know, but it's on the Keynote podcast and it was really good. I think she was early on, one of the earlier episodes. And then choice and agency, which microschools are set up to give lots of choice, lots of agency, but still, especially if we didn't grow up in that environment, it's really, really hard to shift to, I can't have the child do this. My mother-in-law was out visiting and we had to go to drum lessons, and we get in the car and I will never tell Dax what he's missing. And so I'll be like, I wonder what you're missing. I'll use a declarative statement or do we have everything we need? And he'll look around and he's able to use his frontal lobe to be able to go and get the thing. So we get in the car and I'm like, oh, I wonder what we're missing. My mother-in-law is like, oh, he forgot his drumsticks. We gotta go get him. And I'm like, no, we need to let him do that. And so it's like giving choice and autonomy and having kids thinking for themselves is really, really important. And then real world problem solving and celebration of mistakes. How many of you were celebrated when you got an F on a test?
Nope.
Not a single hand in this room. So mistakes are how we learn and we grow, and we need to normalize mistakes, because more than anything what I was listening to is with adaptation, we need to be able to help kids iterate and iterate and iterate and prototype. This isn't just the final product. We have to start, and we're gonna fail and fail and fail. I mean, look at, you know, the most successful people in the world. They failed a lot to get to that place. And a lot of kids really, really, really struggle with failure. And I would have to say a lot of parents struggle with the failure. Or they feel like failures as well. So these are the vital skills needed. Emotional regulation, real world problem solving, relationship skills, adaptability, purpose, and meaning. These are it. This is what we really, really need to be thinking about as we are in our microschools. It's not just about the content that they're learning. Okay, so now let's get a little interactive. You can go to menti.com and enter the code, or you can do the QR code if it'll work from that far.
Yes, worked for me.
It works, okay. And you can start typing in your answers. For that first one is typing.
I can fix it, Tanya. It's alright, I can always do it I can do it the old-fashioned. I was just being
I just
lazy.
want to be kind to you, Denise.
But what will work look like when today's kindergartners are 25?
That's so scary. AI robot manager.
Oh, the code is, it's up on the top. So it's 71. Oh, was that a different code?
That's the same code. It's just
Okay.
kind of hard to read now.
Okay, 71766082.
Maybe you can put it on the other screen for just a moment longer.
I'll go back to the 71766082.
I'll make sure that's correct.
What will work look like when today's
Be able to access it?
I mean, all of us could be, right?
Who knows?
Terminator World War III. Yeah, I like.
Think outside the box too, not just my AI. Like, what does work mean?
What does work mean?
Yeah, like work. Because right now,
Yeah.
work means we have this path at school to college to work. What is that going to look like when our little babies are 25?
Hopefully a lot different than it looks now.
Hopefully, what?
A lot different, because work sucks. I mean, which is perfect for school, because school sucks, so it sets you up for the work sucks thing.
But I think
There you go.
someone else really, like,
It's the mindset.
Yeah.
It's the belief system.
understand reality and
Anyone else want to add?
for the grand.
Trades? Yes, absolutely. We still need trades. Kindergartners will be growing foods, taking care of animals, and taking care of people. They'll be creatively solving problems.
We wish.
We wish. Yes! Let's do it. How do I?
More entrepreneurs. Yeah, I think so.
Entrepreneurs. Lots of machines, robots doing the daily working. Adults will be self-motivated to do what they love, and they will be able to make it work with self-love as well. I think there's gonna be a lot more purpose-driven work
Yeah.
Like you said, it's like
Yeah.
school sucks and work sucks, but if you're doing something you love and something you're passionate about, the work is no longer feels like work.
It's like flow state work.
Flow state work. I
Yeah.
love flow. More technology workers just operating the programs run by AI and have time to create and innovatively think. Hands-on skills valued, ideas valued. I think just in person, there's going to be this value of, you know, being in the flesh and with each other. Awesome, thank you. Okay, we'll go to the next one. How will humans connect when most communication happens through technology? Or how will they get their connection needs met too? Because we all have this need to be connected to each other. And I always make this joke, when I speak in front of people, I'm fine. When I speak, it doesn't even have to be this many people on Zoom. My heart, I literally can see it through my chest. My brain is so freaking confused, even though I've been doing Zoom meetings for a very long time. I start to get really panicky, I get sweaty, because this is not a human being to my brain. And then there's other people, my son who is autistic, profoundly gifted, he prefers this hardcore over in front of being in front of people. Okay, so you cannot connect meaningfully in the same ways via technology, absolutely. Shared interests, yes. We're already seeing that too, and then connection and communication aren't synonymous. We will need to be intentional about real in-person relationships, absolutely. I know it is odd for me, I'm building out this program and I'm connecting with people virtually, which is such a blessing. I just started working with a woman who just fled from South Africa and she lives in Isle of Man. Without technology, I probably would never meet her. But also, it's weird for me that I'll probably never meet her. I just met with a woman from Nairobi, Kenya, who's really, really wanting to break cultural patterns. And well, my church has a group in Nairobi right now, and she's very familiar with where they are. So maybe one day I'll actually get to meet her in person. But technology allows us to be able to meet more people and make connections, but then we're not getting what our brains and bodies are wired for. We'll become more reliant on our family units and friend groups to provide our social needs. There'll be more value in face-to-face communication. Absolutely. Shared meals. Who put that?
Me.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. It's never gonna go away. I hope not.
I hope not either. Well, everyone's gonna be growing their own food, right?
Making their own sourdough.
Farm to table. Okay, what's the most important skill people will need to navigate truth? Kind of talked about this. In an age of infinite information. And I don't know why we're still having, memorization as a skill is still helpful, but the regurgitation of information, everyone's walking around with infinite information in their pocket. So critical thinking skills is in the lead.
Landslide victory.
There's deep fakes, the podcast I was listening to, and at the end, an opportunity for you to give me your email and I can add you to my newsletter and I'll send out all of the podcasts I listen to prepare for this because they're super fascinating. And I have some principles and resources for your families that I can send to you. And so I listened to the diary of a CEO, and he said he has a team that literally just has to deal with his deep fakes every day. And what breaks his heart is when the single mom emails them because she just paid $1,500 to some deep fake person that she thought was him. So I think that's going to be a lot to navigate, and that there's multiple truths. I mean, even think about when a kid takes a test and it's multiple choice. Really, there may not just be one right answer. And there's not just one answer just in general. And just the information overload. That's something that in therapy, my psychologist was like, you are using information and reading books as your dopamine fix. And I was like, what? But it's like I'm doing on real books, you know? What do you mean? And so I have to either bring it to, I read about one book a month now instead of multiple books a month. Creating communities of trust, value-based decision making, learn how to think through problems. Okay, which of these challenges do you think this generation will face the most? And if you want to talk about any of these things, please do. Dialogical, right? I want it back and forth.
Where's the all of the above?
I mean, some of us were already, you know, in for sure. Really cool little balls, that's kind of fun.
Yeah.
Social media damaging mental health, absolutely. I just watch the girls while we're in service and the stuff that it's going into their minds. It is just so overly sexualized. So it's just blows my mind. Like what, you know, so we talk about that a lot. I actually, like the church that I go to is one of the largest churches in the country, and I'm at a campus. And so the culture very much is trying to meet with, you know, modern culture, but then they're not actually bringing their physical Bibles. They're not bringing, you know, journals, and so I've taken it upon myself, and it's amazing. Like all the phones go in the middle, and it's amazing that how the engagement just goes way up whenever they're off of that stuff. Or the one girl told me she sleeps with her phone right here. I'm like, and she has severe learning differences. I'm not blaming it on the phone, but I'm like, oh honey, like let's just, first step, do it next to your bed. Next step, not even in your room at all. I'm like, oh my gosh, yes. Okay, so what skills do you think will be needed in the future? Kind of talked about this. I liked that audible gasp when I said that she was her discernment, that's really good. Empathy. And I also teach mindsight, which is a concept that comes from Dr. Dan Siegel. So it's being aware of what's going on in your own body, but then also at the same time having this insight to, you know, other people. So it's like a step deeper than empathy. Critical thinking, leadership, emotional resilience. See, I told you are going to already know these things. Communication, adaptability is going to be huge. Self-motivation, tenacity, oh, that's a good word. See, you're already using your critical thinking skills too. Awesome. Okay, so let's go back here. Thank you for participating in that. Okay, so I created a framework to help us help kids thrive in the future. And these also will help us thrive in this world that we're in as well. So this will be your blueprint for future ready humans. And it's going to provide what traditional models don't, the relationship, flexibility, trust, things that I'm sure you're already doing in your microschools, but helping you be even more aware and helping develop these skills in kids. Okay, so T is tuned in awareness. That is, in my program that I teach parents, I have a purpose framework, and with the P, it's pausing and presence and perception. In the certification program that I went through, the very beginning of the program, they told us it's like laser beams. When you're talking to a child, it is you make that eye contact, it is like they are the only person in the world. Do you feel that? I feel that. They're the only person in the world that exists, you know, and so I love that laser beam analogy. I use it all the time, or especially if I'm on my phone and a kid comes in and I have a kid with high needs, and I'm an empath, and I tell people it's like on Hocus Pocus, where they, you know, like suck it out. I feel like he sucks it out of me. And so I have to just pause and be fully present and aware, and we can teach that to our kids. And the best way to teach kids is modeling to them. We want to help cultivate kids who notice their inner world and are equipped to respond, not just react. How many adults do you know they're just reacting to what's happening in the world? My friend, her husband was a chef at JW Marriott, the biggest resort in the valley, and his head chef, like, he had to leave the job. I was just constantly, it's like what you see with Dave or whoever's on the cooking shows, just screaming and yelling, just so reactive. And we can help cultivate and develop that when the kids' nervous systems are developing and their brains are so much more plastic. And then we have H, which is holistic development. This is teaching them about their brains and teaching them about their bodies. And neurodivergence is on the rise, and there's so many contributors to it, and one of them is nutrient deficiency. I read The Boy Crisis, Warren, I can't remember his name, and John Gray, who wrote Men Are From Venus, Women Are From Mars, he has a section in that book about ADHD, and he's like, it's not a deficit of attention, it is an inhibited dopamine function. The dopamine, it's either way too much or not enough, and that's why we're seeing where they can't get started or they don't have this motivation. We have a neurotransmitter problem, especially in America. I've been telling some of you, my son has had really bad meltdowns when he was younger, and we've been meltdown free for 4 years, and then puberty decided to hit, and oh my gosh, the meltdowns are back, but he's much bigger, and he loses complete control, and we just started him on omega-3 and saffron and all these things, and we haven't seen a meltdown since I started him on the saffron. And so our brains are really deficient on nutrients. And look at the American child's diet. And I'm sure lunches, I mean, there's a little boy that comes to Dax's school with the cereal bag with a little bit of cereal in it. And like, what else did she say was even in there? Like in a bag of Doritos. You know, and that's all he's eating for the entire 7 hours that he's at the microschool. Our brains are so nutrient deficient, so teaching kids about health and nutrition, I think, is more important than ever. And, you know, we can encourage projects that combine art and logic and ethics and technology. Also understanding the effects of technology. They're going to use it, right? I had an optometrist tell me, because I was asking about if he's seeing a difference in eye health with how many of us have exposed to blue light. They're thinking that we're going to start seeing Alzheimer's when people are in their 20s because of how much exposure to blue light that we have. I have these awesome yellow glasses that I wear. Oh my gosh, I can tell a huge difference in my nervous system. And so helping or understanding the effects of dopamine and dopamine burnout. Ned Johnson talks about that a lot in Self-Driven Child. And understanding that brains really aren't ready for the access of as much technology until their brains are more developed, or to start teaching them how to create versus just consume. That's a really big differentiation that we need to help start teaching them as well. Okay, so then we have repair, resilience, and relationship. This is conflict management, teaching kids that they lack the skills on how to solve conflicts. And what I see with parents, they come in like, you hit him, you need to tell him sorry, and what skills are we learning, or what skills are we teaching whenever we do that? Just mom gets upset whenever we have fights. Instead, there's this awesome tool. So there's this company called Language of Listening, and I think they do trainings and stuff for educators as well as parents. And they have a trademark tool called See What You Say, where you become the neutral party, the mediator. And it is really hard sometimes when one kid is clearly the culprit and clearly the one causing all the issues to not validate those feelings behind the behavior. So see what you say is you literally just say what you're seeing, and you help them both feel seen and heard and understood, and then you teach the skill of how to resolve the conflict. So teaching of repair, and then also repairing, so you're human. Say you lost it on a student, or something happens where you were just pushed to your edge. Repair, repair, repair. A lot of us have not grown up in environments where the teachers asked for forgiveness or apologized, or our parents apologized, because they didn't know how, but we can model that for our kids. And then imagination and play. This is my favorite, even with teenagers. And when I mention play, a lot of times parents, oh, I hate play. I don't want to play. I don't want to have to take the horse around the corral one more time. And that's not even what I mean. It's this playful interaction. Just this week, Dax not getting his shoes on, and I started to get frustrated, and I was aware where I was feeling in my body. I'm like, get your shoes on, get your shoes on, get your shoes on. And then I stopped and I said, oh, let's go get our shoes on, because the spaceship is out in the driveway, and we gotta put our shoes on, we're aliens. He looked at me and was like, oh, and then he went and put his shoes on, and then we went out into the spaceship, and it took way less time than me yelling at him over and over again. And the voices work really well with my 15-year-old. He'll think I'm stupid, or just like, oh my gosh, you're ridiculous. And then one time I started walking out, and he said, Mom, can you use the voice again? Can you be the old lady? Sure, I'll be the old lady, Can you please take all that food that you have just like growing mold in your room out of your bed? And play, the reason why play is so powerful is because it connects us to our frontal lobe. And it's all the good neurotransmitters that we need, and it takes us out of our limbic system. And a note on that with technology is, I was on a panel a couple months ago with this woman named Chris Rowan, and I forget what her background is. She has this amazing research on her website on technology, and especially in that 0 to 5 years. And she said what they're seeing is no connections from the limbic system to the frontal lobe. Talk to any kindergarten teacher who's been a kindergarten teacher for 10, 15 years, and they are seeing that in these 5-year-olds. And we need that from amygdala up to the frontal lobe for logical thinking, rational thought. We need those neural connections to be nice and strong. And play is a really, really great way to get there. And then values-based learning. I have a values toolkit, one for in your home with your families, and I have a values toolkit for your classroom, because kids need an internal compass. And of course, they're going to start out with your values, but then they'll eventually start to develop their own values and being, respectful of those. And core values and identity really help children understand, okay, who am I becoming? And that's going to be needed more than ever in the future. And then E, and I have this in my parent framework as well, is empowered growth. And that's the growth mindset, reflective thinking, how to use AI as a tool and not to think for you. I found myself using it so much that I couldn't even just send a text to a friend. I'm like, whoa, what are you doing? Because it was doing all the thinking for me. So now I'll use it as an idea generator or a way to be able to kickstart like a thought. And then I am still making sure I'm doing a lot of the thinking, and we can teach that to our kids. And then you're gonna have a whole workshop on AI a little bit later. So it's a perfect segue to that. Okay, so that's the framework, and we're gonna end this session. We're gonna do role play first, and then we're going to all come into teams, and I'll take a letter, and you're gonna develop some things that you can apply in your microschools. How am I on time? I have 30 more minutes, right? Okay. Sweet. Okay, everyone get up. Let's just move a little bit. It's a lot. I love it. It's a lot of talking. Okay, stretch, and then while you're stretching, you need a little movement break. I need 2 volunteers to do a role play with each other. So one person's going to play the guide or the teacher, and one person's going to play a 12-year-old student. Okay, Andrew? So I'm also going to do the role play. You can sit back down, you can sit, whatever you, I'm giving you autonomy and choice of what you want to do with your body right now.
I'll be wrong.
Awesome! Okay, come on up. Okay, so here, I'm going to paint the picture for you guys. And then we're going to hear the responses, and I would love some feedback afterwards. Okay, so the 12-year-old boy, Andrew, you're going to be a 12-year-old boy.
Pick my nose here, right?
They still take notes.
Oh, yeah.
And you're just kind of like, why should I learn anything? AI can do it better.
Oh, okay.
You got it?
Yeah. All right, what am I doing?
You're just going to riff off of
I'm
Sorry,
gonna go on
got it?
GPT. I'm gonna go on GPT right now. Oh, are we debating?
So
Or what's going
we're
on?
just doing a role play
Okay.
of
During school, you're obviously not interested in the activity that I have available for you. So I'm just curious why you're on your phone and not engaged in the activity that we have today.
I mean, AI can do it. Like, I'm already done.
AI can do the activity, but can AI experience it for you?
I mean, I'm done. Kind of like, what's the point?
I love these moments because they do. Kids are so great at making you like.
You're
I'm
spot
so
on.
generous.
So spot on.
You are spot
I have a 12-year-old cousin.
on. I was saying, you're so young.
And
too.
high school, yeah.
Let me ask you what the purpose of your learning is. Is the purpose of your learning task completion, or is it to grow your own skill set?
I guess to grow.
Will you grow by asking AI to do this task for you?
Maybe.
How could we use AI in a way that would support your growth?
I mean, maybe is there like a point? If there's like a point to the lesson, maybe you can learn that and still get it done faster with AI.
The task will be done,
Yeah.
but how will you grow your skills? Because in the end, I don't care about the task being completed. I care about your skill growth. What skill do you think you're growing in this moment?
My prompting.
Okay, that's a very valid skill. What kind of prompts are you using for your AI right now? Which is not a fair question since you're not really doing it, but.
Adrian, what's the context? What's the
Whatever context you want. Just create that.
Do you think that you could write a prompt that would help you grow your skill set in this moment? How could we use ChatGPT to discover what skills you could be growing in
What's
this
the
moment?
skill set again?
Project management.
Project management?
Sure,
Okay.
we'll use that.
GPT, can you teach me about project management?
So what kind of answers did you get?
It's asking me about why. Like, why are you interested in project management? What kind of projects do you typically manage? you have any experience with project management framework or tools like a Trello, Asana, Gantt charts? But 12-year-old doesn't say that. How do you prefer to learn? What's your time commitment or goal?
I
So
love
these are great questions. Yeah,
They are
you
great
could
questions.
start answering these questions to start defining what skills you could be gaining from doing this activity.
So I could kind of learn about project management kind of through ChatGPT and what we're doing in class.
Absolutely.
So I could use this and do that?
Absolutely.
Oh, cool.
Woo! Are we done?
You're good. You're good. Oh, that was so good.
Well done. High five.
So using the Thrive framework too, which she definitely did, you know, trying to tap into where he's at, meeting where he's at, what are his interests, and then you can even address his feelings, or maybe he's feeling disengaged and going on to AI because he feels excluded, or maybe there's something else deeper going on, and then helping him connect to joy, or she could have used, you know, some play. I mean, 12-year-olds, again, you can just, with your language, you can use like jokes. And so anyways, that was beautiful, especially for doing it just on the spot. That was great. Thank you.
Woo.
Okay, who wants to do the next one?
Mr. Beast.
And say Lorian's probably going to keep playing the guide now. Okay, the situation is, who wants to be the student? Melissa, you be the student?
Oh.
Come on. You made eye contact. Don't make eye contact. Oh, okay. Denise, why don't you be the guide? Can you be the guide?
Or maybe Denise the student. Whatever.
Always have to be the adult in
Denise is
every
gonna be too lost.
situation. Sucks. I want to be a kid again.
No, you don't.
Okay, so the situation
I'll have to
is
share.
that it doesn't have to be Mr. Beast, it can be whatever YouTuber you want, but you're just like, why do I have to do school? Why do I have to do this? Because I'm just gonna be a famous YouTuber and I'm gonna make millions of dollars and I won't ever have to work again.
This sounds like a conversation I
I
had
was
with
gonna
my
say, does she know our voice?
I am David. I am going to
David.
I'm going to play professional Rocket League. I do not need the skill. I'm going to make millions, and what I need is 17 hours on my Xbox a day playing so that I can get better. I need to get my thumb grips. I need to 3D print my better thumb grips so that I can faster move through it. Let's see, sorry, I changed your
Oh,
thing.
you're good.
I am so excited for this because I'm ready for you to support me. Secondly, let's get the plan together on how this is gonna work. What are your next steps to make this happen?
Well, I need a big soda and maybe some rock stars. I'm gonna have to have a way to use the restroom next to me because this is gonna take a lot of time.
Okay, tell me how that helps you grow into a healthy adult.
I'll make lots of money.
That's a start. What are you gonna do next that's gonna grow your brain so you can achieve these goals?
Research the best finger moves.
Sorry.
That was a good one to say that.
I don't have the technical words down.
Okay, so let's
The cheats, the skills,
How long do you think this is going to take? What kind of research do you need to do, and how long do you think it's going to take to reach these goals?
Well, I could probably watch 3 hours of YouTube videos.
Okay, so my mom heart or my guide heart needs to know that you're developing your brain to the best of your ability, and that 3 hours is way too much for me. So let's find a way to reach your goals and my goals together. What's your solution for that?
Well, there's this conference that's happening in Texas in a month, and I thought about getting a job so that I could earn some money so I could buy a plane ticket, but I'm gonna need like transportation. So I guess I could figure out like transportation, and maybe I could figure out like how to get there, and then I could learn some more skills from this conference.
I'm good with that.
But maybe planning the trip and presenting it to you so that you feel comfortable with me getting on a plane. And going.
Perfect. Let's make a time frame for that and report back to me. Okay.
Love it! That was so good. So what she did first, she didn't just judge right away. Nine.
No, I just did
But, you know, you can't play on the Xbox for 17 hours. Are you crazy? Like, you know, that's sometimes the approach I take. And it doesn't work. work ever, just to let you know, it does not work. And I just read, again, sorry, that's the way I get my dopamine, a book called How to Raise a Healthy Gamer. And I had read How to Reset Your Child's Brain by Victoria Dunkley, which is really helpful, especially at the very beginning of her book. She has a reset plan if kids are fully screen addicted, but she explains what's going on, even a Kindle, and how it impacts the different sensory systems. Then How to Raise a Healthy Gamer is by, he goes by Dr. K, and he works with adolescent and adults that have screen addiction. And he himself was screen addicted, just failed out. His story is incredible. He failed out of college his first year, and I forget, he works on Ivy League now, school. But he failed out because he was playing 17, 18 hours a day and missed his finals, and his parents sent him, he's from India, and his parents sent him to a monastery or to a Buddhist something, and he said it was for the first time ever he was going to become a monk. He said because it was the first time ever that he actually could be with his thoughts, and it wasn't being controlled by everything else, because he had been playing gaming for so long he was numbed out. And so the monks told him he couldn't be a monk because he didn't live enough life yet. So he came back to the States, and then he has really, really awesome programs. I think they work with educators too, if you do have kids that have challenges there. Yes?
I'm actually work for Dr. K.
Oh, you do?
I'm a healthy gamer coach.
What? Listen, they have coaches.
So cool.
Yeah.
That is so cool.
Yeah, I pursued them because the students that I was working with all came with so many mental health issues, and when I started doing research, I really resonated with his mix of Eastern and Western philosophies.
Yes, and so his approach is what she did. She leaned in with curiosity first. Tell me about that.
Yep.
What do you like about that? And I did, as I was listening to the book, we were driving up north, and we had stopped for lunch, and I sat down and just started asking. I had never asked my son that's very susceptible to screen addiction. And it's because the real world, he can get hurt and sore, and he doesn't like that. And with gaming, he can get hurt, but he doesn't feel it physically. And so I was able to uncover that. What do you like about gaming? I love connecting with my friends. Awesome. So then they have been finding time for him and his friend to do stuff in person. I mean, they are going to Uptown Alley, which has video games and all the things, but they're doing it in person together. So I was able to just lead with curiosity. I think that's really, really powerful, is leading with curiosity and really helping them feel seen, heard, understood. And then you transition into, okay, here's, hi Fred. We transition into how to get them to start, taking some initiative and start guiding them into things that are healthy for their brains. Okay, we're gonna skip the next role play because of time, and that was a long one. So resilience, we brought up resilience, and what we saw in the role plays are, kids, even if they don't recognize that they may be worried about AI replacing them, there's that subconscious, I feel like it's starting to happen, or the dreams don't fit traditional paths, or parents, the other role play was parents being anxious about the uncertain future. And again, the traditional school response is creating an illusion of certainty through rigid curriculum, standardized tests, predictable pathways, but the world is unpredictable and changing. So what you have at your fingertips with microschooling and more personalization is, instead of avoiding uncertainty, we can build resilience. I wanted to mention a little bit what resilience is, because there's still this old belief system of kids do this to toughen up. We just gotta send them into the fire. They just gotta learn. The thing what we know about resilience is that it can't happen if the brain is completely flooded with stress. That is trauma. And if it does seem like they're doing well, I would be curious as what's going on the inside. So there's that fine balance. Ned Johnson again talks about this too, is stress is good. There's a reason why we need to experience some stress, but we need to attune. And again, it comes down to connection and relationship, and attune to where they are so that we can see if it's too much stress, so that we can actually help them build resilience. And it's about growing stronger and being able to recover. And it's that, let me go back. the connection from this limbic center, this is the little amygdala, the connection center to the PFC, the prefrontal cortex, which is what I mentioned with what technology is destroying those neural connections in that 0 to 6 years, 0 to 5 years of life. Because it's just producing way too many neurotransmitters when the brain's not ready. Eventually, I'm guessing that will change, but these kids right now are the ones that are having to face that. So resilience in the brain is creating really strong connections from that limbic center up to the frontal lobe. We do that through just being with kids and our presence. We don't even have, this mouth of mine likes to talk a lot, so it's that I have have to remind myself a lot to just be. That just my nervous system presence, if I can stay in ventral vagal where my frontal lobe is online, that alone is going to help build those connections with my kids. Or, Dax, even though we had 2 beds in our room last night, he wanted to sleep in the same bed as me, and touching me all night long. I did not sleep very well. I woke up and said, "How did you sleep?" "I slept great." He said, "I didn't wake up once." And I was like, "That's wonderful." But he was just touching me all night long, and that was his attachment system and his nervous system just like feeding off of that safety, because kids need neurological safety. Okay, so we've been talking about all these things. Neuroplasticity is super interesting world, and our brains are plastic forever, but they're most plastic in that 0 to 6 to 7. We have that wet cement, and then it starts to harden a little bit more. But resilience is trainable, and there's lots of things that you can do. And so in a microschool, what that looks like is safe relationship first. That kid needs to have full trust. Just with that family I told you about, with a 17-year-old, they started out with not having any trust with him. And he was doing these really high-risk behaviors and not telling them a single thing about it. And as soon as we were able to just use little tools and help him not feel judged and just always in trouble, I don't like that phrase, the trust was built and the relationship is what really matters for him to start behaving better. And then controlled challenges, so pushing on them, but again, attuning to how much stress is being created. Having an agency and voice, giving them as much voice as possible. Like One Stone, such a cool school where the kids are running the things, and look at what they're able to create there. Connection to something bigger than themselves. Figure out what their interests were. So the AI, I would have even maybe started talking, what are you super interested in? What is your passion? And then connecting to this inner purpose that we have. Okay, so we're gonna have our Thrive activity. So we're gonna go over into the rooms. There should be a poster board and a couple sheets of paper on each station. One of the tables has 2 stations, but if you can please go in groups of 4 or 5. And what you are going to do, and it's on the sheet for you, so you don't have to write this down, it's already on there for you. You're going to pick a letter, and then you're going to define what that means in your Microschool. You're going to then brainstorm specific ways to develop that in students. I am going to invite you to not use your phones to come up with ideas first, and then you can use AI. So I would like to see some variation and see how it builds. Like even just that prompt, it was so fascinating how it came back with questions. So that's really cool. And then you're going to create 1 or 2 learning experience or activities that build the skill, and then identify how you're going to measure that. And there's no rules. You can make that poster think outside the box if you want. You can do it how we did in school, or you can get creative, whatever you would like to do. And then so you're just going to have teams, and then we'll present them really quick at the end, and then I'll wrap up. Ready? Go!